Hello and welcome to the Thursday show on the Frontline Gaming Network. My name is Paul Murphy. I'm back this week. Thanks for holding it down last week, gentlemen. Joined by Adam Camilleri.
We did as best as we could. Our feeble efforts were enough to get over the line, but, wasn't the magnificence that it will be this week.
Mr. Dustin coming from the shadows.
Oh, yes. We tried our best. It's never as good without you, Paul, but
Oh,
we're
no,
glad to be back now, and now it's going to be a real show. Adam and I tried to do. We did our best, man. We did our best.
Add some credibility and some legitimacy to this. But no, don't say that because I'm actually going to be out next week. I hate to say it, but I will be back the following week. I'm going to miss you guys.
Always.
But you're going on vacation, but also a work vacation, because we've got 3 bumper weeks coming. This week we're covering 2 amazing events. Next week we've got an amazing event. Week after that we got some amazing events. Man, strap in. We got some crazy good episodes in the works.
Yeah, so this is your weekly tournament hype show where we're going to talk about the biggest tournaments happening this weekend. Some of the heavy hitters you'll see there, the list types you'll see. We're going to break down and do some analysis, and also pick our winners. Did y'all pick any winners last week? Were you close?
Yeah, maybe.
Bang bang. I called it. I even called the podium for the Australian event last week. I called T-Suns Grey Knights and Nids Grey Knights T-Suns. It was. I can't remember if I called the Grey Knights, but I called the T-Suns.
Tyranids, really?
Well, there's a freak show player down here called Eric Lathuris who can just take whatever he wants and get a podium.
I told you guys. I told you needed to be careful with that list. It was scary. None of you believe me.
Look, man. Yeah, fair. All right.
I love it. Sometimes, look. I mean, I'm gonna get we look at these lists and we see these things, and we do. Sometimes there's a little bit of hope where we want this thing to manifest, but sometimes you can really see it. You can know that the players got that they've got that opportunity in front of them. They've got the tools. They've taken that, and you can see what else is in the field. And then the player skill gets into effect, and then the winning happens.
Yep, it does. That list is it's scary. It's scary sneaking. It's exactly what Eric kind of brings. I've seen all his lists. I love watching his play style in terms of his list. I wish I could watch him live a lot more, but I live across the world from him. So start streaming that stuff down there, man. I got to see this.
Dude, I streamed every he won every event that he went to for 9 months straight, and I streamed all of those. And now I don't stream one, and I'm the villain here.
That's right, because you did it before, so why can't you do it again? I wanted to see that. I was so excited to watch that.
I've been in lockdown in Victoria for over 200 of the last 12 months. That's 200 days of the last 12 months, so to speak.
I guess that's fair.
But dude, what are we covering this week? Also, in the chat, give us feedback on the new format. We've got some new assets in play. Our wonderful man Richard and Val have been behind the scenes updating some things, getting some things lined up so we look fresh, we stay current, and able to give you the hype show in a visual experience.
For those listening. Yeah, for those listening in the podcast later, we have the assets. The fancy word is it looks a little different on the screen now. If you're watching this live or on YouTube or on video later, so let us know what you think. Bring back the TVs. Maybe every 5 episodes we're back. We're back to the TVs. So this week we're going to cover some amazing tournaments, 2 giant tournaments. A Las Vegas team tournament, which is a major put on by Frontline Gaming, and it has some absolutely amazing players from all around the U.S. And then the London Grand Tournament, which is they can make a claim to fame as being a super major right now.
Yeah, well, as it sits right now, the London GT will be the biggest tournament that has ever happened in 9th edition, and so it's going to be so cool to see what comes from the fallout of that. But it's so amazing to hype it up and look forward to what will happen there. And they're a weird number. How many rounds they're doing? I think they're doing 7 rounds for that one, because that's, I think, the number on the dot they need to get one undisputed winner.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's just going to be super interesting to see the breakdowns there. Where do you want to jump into, gents?
Let's jump right into that team tournament. I love team tournaments, and we could spend a lot of time talking about this because of the complexity that is in getting you and 4+ of your friends to the same tables on the same day at the same time to roll dice and do it in a way that gives you a shot at winning it's harder than it sounds. So I really would like to break down this team tournament and call out the fact, the style of the tournament, that 58 teams, 5 players each, 290 players total. Let's break down some of those factions.
Yeah, phenomenal achievement. To get just 58 teams is crazy. You don't see 58 teams outside ATC or WTC anywhere in the world, pretty much. Maybe there's some like I hear Spain's got a ridiculously pump and scene. Maybe they get something close to that over there.
58 five-man teams. Remember, so that's why we get the number of players. We're looking at close to 300 players coming here and rolling dice.
Absolutely amazing effort. And as always with team events, you only get to use one codex once, and that is inclusive of Space Marines. If you want to use Space Wolves, can't go using Blood Angels, can't go using Death Watch. It's one and done. And so that really makes a lot of depth. So when we talk about the faction breakdowns, we're essentially talking about how many teams of the 58 teams in representation decided to take that faction, seeing as you're going to take the faction once. So please keep that in mind when we switch over and go to the faction breakdowns. Speaking of that, let's hit that and get a little bit of a look-see. Because man, it is a very interesting tale here. Do you guys know how this format differentiates itself from maybe some other team events? Because they haven't gone with the conventional kind of win. They've gone more win-loss and less a sliding scale of points at the end.
Well, what you're talking about is some tournaments have a differential to where you put it in there, to where you add up everyone's score, and then whoever, if someone's up by more than 20, it's a win, and it slides the others being down by 20 or whatever. There's things that happen with the scoring mechanic to create this separation of things, and also maybe the fact that this differential exists. Anytime there's a scoring mechanism at an event, it can influence what actually gets taken in the list, because it affects what people have to do, what they think they have to achieve on the table.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we talked about this before too, with the team tournaments, when you're looking at something that's not a differential and it's more win-loss, you're going to see a lot more all-rounder lists than you would normally.
Yes. The need to skew, the need to put a barrier in place for your opponent's score is not always there. You always want to leverage and get just go in, get the biggest score you can across the board. And in saying that, there's been some assumptions out there, and I'm just going to say this before we have the list breakdowns come up and the faction breakdowns. People are assuming we're just going to see the best singles list, just people just taking 5 best singles lists they can, because they just want to go in there and smash face and get the biggest scores possible.
Let me also state one thing, though. Even if that is the case, that is actually what you often see in tournaments like this, team tournaments. People will bring what they think is their best list. It is where you start to, people take the most risk as they start to do these things. Like, I think, where we talked about this in the past, where I, going into one of these events, I'm going to take 3 solid brick lists, 3 all-comers, can do anything. You could probably name the codexes without even me mentioning them, and we're going to see them represented here when we start talking about the faction breakdown. But then you got a couple of lists that can really be those daggers, those pit traps, basically pits that you can wrap up your opponent in, if they can even pull it off skill-wise.
Well, exactly right. And 9th edition offers some very unique opportunities when you talk about teams lists, because for the very first time, I think in this games of the team lexicon or whatever, you have defensive lists that are defensive by dint of scoring potential. And I'm talking about things like Dark Angels, Death Guard, some of the Horde-esque Death Guard lists. Necrons can be the same as well. This is kind of the role I see a lot of GSC and Hive Mind lists going into as well. They are defensive, not because that they are going to hold back and maintain like a defensive posture in the game, but they're just going to have like 3 models left at the end of the game, but a huge score. And that's a whole different polarity that we don't really see. We didn't see that as prolific in 8th edition. It was a little bit of it, and we didn't see any of that in 7th edition or 6th edition, to my mind. So this is a really brand new thing that we've seen kind of added to the makeup of teams' environments. But let's hit that faction breakdown. Let's go to that transition.
One second. Before we do that, I didn't remind folks of this, but if you like what you're hearing, please make sure you hit that like, share, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review. That's how the ways people can find us. It helps those little algorithms churn, and this is what we're going to do every week: break down these types of lists, give this type of analysis and some thoughts, and also a little bit of hopes and dreams we're going to sprinkle in here.
Oh, just entirely sprinkled.
Adam, you want to run down those factions?
Yeah, absolutely.
We got to finally get to it now. Here we go.
Here are some new assets for your viewing pleasure. Jumping in for the LVTT. So like we said, 58 teams, so please take that into account. 22 Admech, 29 Drakari, 21 Sisters, 15 Orcs, 20 Grey Knights, 6 T-Suns, 5 Tyranids, 1 Hive Mind, single Hive Mind. And we're going to be breaking down that list because, for the lols. 0 Mono GSC, 20 Custodes, 17 Necrons, 4 Astra Militarum, 4 Chaos Space Marines, 1 Demons, 14 Mixed Demons, 2 Tau, and I know I can tell you right now, one of those is Tau proper and one of those is Farsight. 21 Death Guard, 8 Imperial Knights, 3 Renegade, 0 Craftword Eldar, that's a donut, 5 Eldari, 6 Harlequins, 39 total Marines, guys.
That's not surprising. because when you get these one codexes, you got 58 teams. Most people have a Space Marines army. They know somebody has a Space Marines army, and Space Marines are a solid army. Okay, great. You might be you may not be as skilled as or as versatile as probably as some of the other players on the team. We need you to break out that Marine force and get us 3 wins today.
Exactly right. Everybody knows a bloke in their local scene who plays Marines, who probably plays Marines quite well. Because guess what? You can just about everybody. If you've got a decent skill set in this edition, especially 9th edition, you can play Marines pretty well. And not necessarily go out there and be the best in the world, but you're going to get a decent score. You're not going to be you're hopefully not going to be a liability. And so they're just a good fallback. Scratching your head. What's our 5th list? We'll just take an all-rounder Marine list. It's just going to do fine.
Yeah, but that 0 craft worlds is surprising. Now I guess we're going to see some of that if we actually get a list breakdown of the 5 Eldari, the mixed of those. I think that. Yeah. I mean, that's either got to be a combination of things. Maybe the models they wanted weren't available. Maybe the guy who was, or the team member who's really good at playing those out of line of sight shooting craft worlds is also their sister's player or something. I can't explain why we don't see some mono craft worlds there because of all the tools they can bring into these things, create lopsided matchups like you were talking about.
And you'll see this a lot with lists or factions that aren't in like the zenith of their power at the moment. You need to have a reason to bring them. You need to have a role there for them. And I think Asurani, Craftworld Eldar are looking like they're a primary faction, but they don't want to be a mono faction because there's some things that they can do, but they can't do. Like they're a good comparison to Asher Militarum at the moment. Craftworld Eldar do not have a melee deterrent. They do not have a reason if they're sitting back and plucking you with all these very good quality, very high value out of line of sight shooting pieces, the same as in Manticores, Basilisks, Wyverns for Asher Militarum. There's no real decent reason for you to not just run up and touch those models and be like, shut them down. Harlequins add that to them. And I'm saying Harlequins, I'm not saying Dark Eldar, because the Dark Eldar is too good a list to leave
to dilute it. Yeah, you don't want to dilute it.
Exactly. You want to have it. If you're taking any knife of the knifeier super faction, you want to take the most powerful one, which is Drukhari at the moment. There's no real reason to be like, I think I'd rather have the guard-esque Craftworld Eldar build and not the super all well-rounded, beautifully, amazingly high-scoring Dark Eldar army. Like, there's just no real reason to do that.
Yep.
And you see that reflected, like literally 5 mixed Eldari, whereas we have 29 Drukhari, like 29. So there's a huge difference there. Dustin, anything that's jumping out at you on these stats that really kind of takes you by surprise?
Well, that's not surprise. There's a couple of things I like seeing about it. Like what you're saying too. Like you see 0 Siriani, so no craft world on their own, and you're saying that the Harlequins are the best ally to them, which they absolutely are. That's why you see 6 pure Harlequins too, because even on their own, they can run amok. What I really like seeing, because you were saying too, 58 teams, and you want to make sure you take the best list you can, and no single faction is on every team. Because there's 58 teams, no factions on every single team, and that I like seeing that because that means there's a little bit more. And this is why I've said it before, and I'll say it again:
there are no gene stealers on these teams.
We're not going to talk about that. I'm going to ignore that. Paul's poking the bear already.
So
I still love team tournaments. They're the epitome of like 40K right now. They are the best, and I love seeing the balance in this spread right here.
One thing I would like to point out is I've expected to see this happen a little bit. We saw it last weekend, but now we see this kind of ebb and flow when new codexes come out. Like, look at the Grey Knight numbers. Huge. 20 Grey Knight players in attendance. 20 people thought Grey Knights would take up one of the best slots in their 5-man lineup or 5-woman lineup, whatever. But you see the opposite with T-Suns. T-Suns don't have a great representation here. Only 6 lists. And
that's interesting. I mean, do you think that there's a little bit of hobby lag going? Hobby lag is what we refer to when the codex comes out and the choices are a lot different than what it maybe was in the previous iteration of the codex, and so so there's a little bit of a delay where people they know what the best list is or the best list for that codex is, but they just haven't had time to get it on the table. Do you think we're experiencing that with this?
Yes and no. I think. So Grey Knight, it was very easy to see what the best Grey Knight build was, or what a very strong, very good for the meta Grey Knight build was upon release. You just looked at it and you're like, any combination of power armored units and as many Dread Knights as I own. usually you can't really go wrong. That's going to be a good list. Might not be the best one, but it'll be good. T-Suns, I think it's taking a bit more nuance to figure it out. And I think there are some issues with some of the mainline units that people expect to see in T-Suns things. I'm talking about things like Volkite Contemptors. Some cracks are starting to show in the armor of the Volkite Contemptor, because there's a couple of armies out here they are horrible into. I'm talking Grey Knights, I'm talking Orcs. That Volkite Contemptor is trash into either of those armies. The buggies with Ramshackle don't give any craps about that. And Grey Knights having Tighter Shadows for an innate 2+ save, and then having a 5+ against the Mortals, they're starting to drop off wholesale as well. I think people are still trying to figure out where the best T-Suns build lies. And the fact is, I'm not sure people had enough time before the Codex to figure out what role they would play in their five-person lineup. And the fact is, I think things like Death Guard play that similar role easier. People are more experienced with it. People have all the models they need. I think that's what we're seeing here. People are just like, well, I could jump off Death Guard and go on the new hotness, but I could be exposing my team to, having a weaker scoreline there because I'm so experienced with Death Guard, so experienced with, whatever other Chaos Marine list or mix of demons or whatever you might be, because there are still 14 mixed chaos lists here and 6 chaos space marine lists, so there's still quite a few other people here who could jump on that in the meantime. But that's an interesting one. I would have expected to see still 10 or more T-Suns lists. Having only 6 is a bit of a surprise to me.
So, I think the fact that, the Forge Fiends and that kind of stuff, you can see them now. And the Volkite Contemptor, it puts out lots of shots, but I think it really fit in very solidly for lists that were struggling to deal with certain things now. And now there are more lists being injected into the meta with Orcs and Grey Knights and some other thing in answers to that. And so I think its effectiveness is going to fall off, but it's still going to really play extremely well into those mostly Drukarian sisters. I think it struggles a bit with AdMech, but it's still a very valuable tool. But now there are double or triple the things out there that it's not the best against, and that may be why you see it falling off.
Yeah, I think that's actually the main thing to think about here too. Now, to your point too with the Orcs, the T-Suns do have a relic that actually kind of helps the Volkite against, and that's one of the reasons a lot of people will take one Volkite, because then they ignore the Ramshackle, they ignore any minuses to hit or anything, and that actually makes them really efficient against it. And Orcs do have a bit of trouble taking it, but aside from that, it's still. I actually think the main reason we're seeing this kind of mix between, or a drop in T-Suns at a team tournament like this, is that they have kind of the same role as Grey Knights do. So that's why we see a lot more Grey Knights in a team tournament than we would Thousand Suns. And the Thousand Suns, I can speak from experience here that I've been testing a lot of them to try to fit them into a team that I'm getting ready for, a team tournament that's coming up. And they felt really lackluster in a lot of matchups. We found that they actually won't, they'll win, but if they win, it's not a big win. And most of the time it'll be like a big loss when they lose. So there's no,
there you go.
There's no real middle ground for it. Now with a pure win-loss tournament, I could see they still have the value in there, especially when you have a good T-Suns player. But it's when you get the differentials, especially, that's one of those armies that I feel is actually loses big, but wins small. So it's a little more risky in a team tournament.
I got to give some love to the chat. Yeah, Norgo Matthew, we're definitely going to talk about the representation of Death Guard in this tournament pretty soon. And KR Quinn brings up a great point, is that Thousand Suns are kind of hard to do Borrow Hammer with. That's another thing. With these team tournaments, you're trying to distill down and boil down to the best list for everything. It's not just necessarily, hey, show up with your normal tournament list. Most of the time, that you do little tweaks here and there to help you with those matchups and earn those points that Dustin was just talking about. But not everyone has all these things as an option, and so if the models have not necessarily been available to supply chain, and if people didn't have them before, you can't just call your buddy up and say, "Yo, man, give me 30 of those Rubik Terminators." Well, the best I could give you is 5 or 0 or whatever.
Exactly right. So there's a lot we can unpack here. A phenomenal amount we can unpack here. The reason, and to your point, Dustin, the reason T-Suns are still trying to coalesce into what is their role is because I believe absolutely right. I believe for the vast majority of players, they have the same issues that I think the Deathwing builds have. They don't do a lot to stop your opponent scoring points. They score well themselves, but especially because they got that phenomenal secondary. They score very well themselves, but don't do a lot to interact with your opponent's scoreboard. So you're always running that fine line of hey, I got 90 points, but my opponent got 87. I suppose that is a big deal here because we're not going off differential, because if that was in a differential system, that would be a 10-turn draw. You have to be more than 5 points above your opponent to get that 11-9 differential. Some other interesting things here. Only 2 tower players. I'm not crazy surprised by that, but I wanted to point it out. And also, in addition, the AdMech polarity is not actually as high as I thought. The AdMech and Sisters aren't actually as high as I thought. In fact, the Dakari as well, I thought all of them would be pushing 30-plus teams.
That's another one of those things to
those.
where you need a lot of models. You need a lot of specific and unique models that are either they're already consumed by those players. So we talk about, when you need, if you're bringing the what is it, 47,000 transport Drukari or something like that, or the 120 Rangers, or that one of those types of lists. Yeah, it's you're not going to see it, or not everyone's going to want to do that.
Yeah.
And more importantly, other people are also going to think about how to beat it, and that's what we're going to see, or that's why we see probably the Death Guard and the Custodes that we do.
Yep.
Yes.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Right.
Necrons too, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Do they know the terrain that's going to be at the tournament too? Because seeing 11 Knights. Seeing 11 Knights is actually a little surprising to me.
It's player placed. It's FLG player placed. So they're actually going to have a bit of agency. And so you see some of these lists that you may not see otherwise. Like Knights are all of a sudden really potent here because they get to have a say in like the lanes upon which they can move. They don't just have to rock up to a table and just cop what they cop. So they've got a lot more agency, and I think they're actually a really empowered faction in this format. Both sides, the Renegade and the Imperial Knights. Interesting that we see. Usually, you see a polarity between them, like they're pretty homogenous. Like you'll see 8 and 8, or you'll see 5 and 5, or you'll see 6 and 7, or whatnot. But seeing 8 and 3, I'm actually interested to know why there's such a big gap between the two of them. It's just because Chaos players have other stuff to be doing, or maybe there's a couple more of the Renegade Knights in the mixed Chaos lists.
Are they pure Knights when you put them down? I'm assuming they are. I'm just
pure Knights. If the ones I list are only pure Knights.
I'm surprised at that because I do think that I think Chaos Knights, pure Chaos Knights, is actually better than pure.
I don't know. They're struggling though. They're struggling in the field right now.
For sure, but
so. I think defensively, Imperial Knights are better. Offensively, Renegade Knights are better. And in a teams format, you want the deterrent of, hey mate, I've got Renegade Knights, and if you go second, you might just lose. Because I'm just gonna, dunk every weapon I've got is gonna supercharge. All these lightning locks are gonna pop off, and I'm gonna have damage 3 Avenger Gatling cannons and all this nut stuff going off. Hey, I'm gonna hurt myself doing this, and if you survive this turn, I may not be able to win, but you're going to shake it in your boots at the thought of possibly going second versus me and just getting demolished.
Well,
it's a very real thing.
We haven't talked about the pairings here. So, it's not guaranteed you get to play your best matchup every game. There is some back and forth in there to where you could be put in a lopsided matchup. And I think that the only reason to bring Knights to these things is to try to create those lopsided matchup situations.
Yes.
So I think that the number of Knight players here it's hard to read at the surface level because it has a lot to do with what the other list on their teams make up to how valuable that Knight player actually, or the Knight list actually is.
Yeah, it actually is important to see what they're teamed up with, I think, to see exactly where they're fitting into their team meta. In fact, I wouldn't be really surprised if those 3 Renegade Knights are on the same team as 3 Imperial Knights.
That's true. Yeah. And they're trying to stretch those pairings, so make sure one of these guys gets through and gets that big old win. I want to talk a little bit about Marines. So Marine total.
We got to talk about Space Wolves too when we're talking about these. Wolf Priest Carl here is holding down those Space Wolves.
We have to.
Very, very first time I think I've seen Space Wolves be. Last week we saw Space Wolves be the most numerous faction, and now we're seeing again they're equal most with Dark Angels 10-10. Now those two are at 2 different ends of the spectrum. Traditionally, we see Dark Angels taken as defensive list. Space Wolves can't not be offensive, especially their Space Wolves successes. And then straight down from that, we have 7 White Scars. Now, if you take those 2 together, and then you take the 1 Blood Angels, that's 18. And 1 Black Templars as well. There's probably 19 out of the 39 lists that are just aggro. They're just aggressive lists.
I love it. I love that.
And that's me making some assumptions, of course. But
no, I think you're dead on, right? Why else would you be taking those factions? I mean, obviously you can play them very many different ways, right? But in this situation, you're trying to overwhelm your opponent. Like my opponent has no screens. They have nothing. They have no deployment tricks. Okay, well, let's just ram these things across the table and maybe they don't have an answer.
I just want to say, bless their cotton socks, but there's 1 Imperial Fist player. Bless. Good for you, soldier.
I bet they're painted immaculately also. It's probably...
If somebody's bringing them, they're gorgeous, for sure.
Yeah. Interesting, and I've expected to see this, and we're starting to see it. 5 Deathwatch. Deathwatch slowly bubbling away here, with Orcs getting injected into the scene, Drukari being possibly the preeminent faction in the game at the moment, especially on win rate. Deathwatch is still bubbling away, and a team's lineup having that threat that, hey, I've just got a bunch of stuff that counters this guy. Do you want to take the risk, or do you want me to just go into somebody else? It's a very nice little thing to have in your back pocket.
Deathwatch seemed to be almost like a coin flip situation. Either they get their tricks off, they know when to enact their stratagems, they've got the right mix of kill teams on the table, or they just get boxed up.
Yep, spot on. But I'd say in looking at this, 29 Drukhari, 15 Orcs, 17 Necrons. Just talking about those three breakdowns, like the vast majority of the list is going to have a Xenos army for those Deathwatch players to go and hunt. They're going to be like, I'm trying to get you, I want you, and just having that be a factor in your pairings, hopefully it contributes something, because that's, I think, what the power they would bring in this. Do you want to talk about some of the top teams in representation?
Yeah, let me get some of the comments here, though. Is that Sashiap says that the Book of Rust gave the Imperial Knights something more than the Chaos Knights. That may be fair. What we see, but I'm willing to bet, Justin, that you are right, that there is an overlap between those. Some of I think probably every one of those Chaos Knight players has an Imperial Knight player on their team, and they're hoping to create those lopsided things. And then, not a lot of Iron Hands representation.
Not a lot of Iron Hands, not a lot of Ultramarines, not a lot of Salamanders, and usually we see, Ultramarines is like the second or third most represented faction. One Iron Hands. I can't tell you why that is. I got no explanation for only two Ultras and one Iron Hands.
Well, I think they're trying to create these really lopsided matchups, and while the Iron Hands and Ultramarines, they are able to win, they are able to get victories, but they're not going to make anyone have target priority confusion. They're not going to, I don't think, really create situations to where one army can just run over the other army.
And also, so when you think about what those things bring to the fore, they're usually the strong backline shooting armies or the strong alpha strike shooting armies, and that just means that I think teams have found that in other places. They've got like, well, we've already got that covered. We don't need the Ultras. We've got Admech. Why do we need Iron Hands? We've got Admech in our lineup to play that role. And so we're seeing them be like, well, what do we actually need Marines to do? We need Marines to be intimidating. Let's go get all these aggressive bastards into our lineup, or we need them to be ultra defensive, and let's get those Dark Angels in. And so we're seeing this bit of an ebb and flow about what people think will be viable or what people feel like they have a position for in their lineup.
Well, we talked about how even a small win is good enough to maybe get you to the next round or whatever, but people aren't going to want small wins. They want big wins. They want sounding victories is what they want, and I don't know if you get that consistently with some of these lists that we see underrepresented.
Absolutely right. Now let's jump down and talk about some of these teams. So the top three teams in the ITC have all sent a squad. They've all sent a squad, and it's interesting to say the least. The first up, Art of War, is in the first place team. That's Jack Harpster playing Black Templars. John Lennon, the current number one ranked player in the world in the ITC, playing his sisters, because he's barely lost a damn game with them. Brad Chester playing Dark Eldar. Nick Nanavati playing Grey Knights. And Richard Siegler playing Admech. Now, I don't need to tell you that lineup is disgusting. It's absolutely
it's
revolting.
A little scary.
Quality players, and a couple of unknowns here, at least for the list, with the Black Templars and the Grey Knights. But you got great Sisters player playing Sisters, accomplished player in general. Playing Dark Eldar, been playing Dark Eldar for what seems seemingly forever. And then Siegler with Admech, coming off a very sound strategy last, big win in Orlando not that long ago, and you can't balk at the effectiveness of this team.
No, but there's two interesting choices here. Nick Nanavati playing Grey Knights, which I don't think we've seen Nick Nanavati take Grey Knights to a tournament, and Jack Harpster switching off Blood Angels, which he's been exceptionally successful with for the last couple of events. He was playing Black Templars prior to that, but he's back to the Black Templars for this one, which I think is quite interesting. Possibly a choice for the meta or a choice based on the different terrain formats. Because I really think the GW terrain really, really benefited Blood Angels phenomenally, and maybe he's just decided that a little bit more resilience, because I know he's going Terminator heavy on this one. A little bit more resilience, so a bit more.
No, this is their brick list. We don't know what to throw out there. Okay, well, let's put this out.
But it's brick with X Factor is what the Black Templars is. It's brick with like devout push jank thrown on top. You can just be like, oh, it's a bit of a headache for your opponent. And then Nick on Grey Knights, I think, is a really interesting one. He's generally a very defensive player by default, and I think Grey Knights are aggressive list. I put Grey Knights up there with White Scars for how they perform and what they do.
The min board control going to be a absolute terror if you are unequipped to deal with them. I mean, let's be honest. Actually, most armies are not bringing things that are equipped to deal with them.
Exactly right. And if you can just dodge sisters, that Grey Knight army just really doesn't have anything that's going to be giving it a huge slap in the face. Like as in on just like looking at list for list, you're just like, well, if you cop sisters, pretty horrible. But if you just dodge them, like what other really hard counters are out there?
Yeah. There are some out there. Maybe that's what we see. Maybe some of those death card lists are like heavy poxwalker. They're like, oh, you know what? Zod away. Zod all these poxwalkers. Yeah. We don't care at all. That's one way to, if you have something that can absorb, heck, I say this, 2 or 3 rhinos may spoil the Grey Knight, charge or whatever.
You're gonna see some some demons out there because they still have that strat to just come back.
Exactly, just come back, man.
That's interesting. A real pain in the butt when you get free points in the 9th edition right now.
Well, dude,
really big pain.
I've watched some of my friends, my friends practicing Grey Knights into demons back before in years gone past, and the guy has like 2 Keepers of Secrets in his list, but the Grey Knight player has to kill 6 of them over the game, and you're just like. That shouldn't be a thing. 2 CP, free Keeper of Secrets.
That seems like that's a bargain.
That's a bargain.
Absolutely,
yeah, that's the biggest bargain. It's amazing.
But yeah, it's an interesting lineup that they've got. Seeker on Admech, can't go wrong, and Chester on Dark Eldar. I think the only people he's lost to. I think the only people he's lost to in tournaments, apart from I think Jaime with Space Wolves, are on his team. So whatever, go for it, son. So I think this is going to be a really interesting one. Of course, I can't not pick these boys. In fact, what am I doing? I'm not wearing my Art of War shirt, and I'm not going to support my squad. But I picked these guys to win it. The next one under here, the second place team in attendance is Frozen North Gaming. Only recently having taken that slot from our third place team, that being Team Battle Brothers. They're playing under the Advanced Warfare team name. I think that's a bit of a coaching service or some kind of service they're providing. I think they're promoting that. But Frozen North Gaming, currently second ranked in the ITC. Ben Sherwin playing Grey Knights.
Yep.
Matt Root playing Orcs. He's gone back to Orcs, boys.
Nope.
Yes, finally. Our boy is playing Orcs again. Elliot Levy playing Admech. Ryan Olsen playing Ultramarines. And James Kelling on Drakari. What do you make of that?
Let's look at this dichotomy, or the way that these teams stack up against each other. Got a little bit what we expect, the aggression on both is, and then they've got that one Marine player for that same thing. Like, you know what? Shrug your shoulders, push a Marine player out, see what happens.
Yep. Spot on.
I actually, this team is a lot scarier than a lot of people might realize. Like every single guy on this team, they're really, really good with their factions.
Killers. They're all
killers,
man.
Absolutely killers. And Ben, my boy, who won Iron Halo just now, or not just now, just over the weekend, who maybe somebody predicted would happen. You know he's good. Well, I'm a little sad that Matt's not playing Hive Mind anymore, but it's been a while. But seeing him on Orcs actually makes me happy.
Me too. Actually makes me really happy he's on Orcs. The parallels between this one and the one above, they've both got a Grey Knight player. They've both got a Drakari player. They've both got an Admech player. So 3 out of the 3 are homogenous. So then we've got an Orc player in Matt Root. He's was usually a Drakari player, but they have James Kelling, who's a baller Drakari player. So one of them's got to switch. If you want to have these 2 guys on the team, one of them's got to have to make the hard call and drop off. And so Matt Root's obviously had the pivot into Orcs in mind. He's even had it on lists that we reviewed saying Orcs are still being painted. I'm playing Drakari for this one, etc., etc. Playing some mind games. Now, interesting, they took that Ultramarines list over, say, a brick list or a more aggressive list.
Do we know what's in that list? Because Ultramarine can still shoot really well.
Yeah.
Well, bear with me for a couple of minutes. You guys talk quietly. I'll actually look it up. I'll look it up right now. Because now I was saying it, I'm actually really interested.
Well, Dust, let me ask you a question. Are Orcs as effective as the Sisters?
They're effective in a different way. I feel like they actually match differently and match better into certain other armies. Like for Sisters, you're looking to get them to GK, like we were saying before. You're looking to get them to certain matchups that Sisters can do well into. Orcs are better against something else other than Sisters. I don't know if I wouldn't say they're comparable in terms of, I would bring both, to be honest. I think they're both more than worth taking. But if you don't have a player for each, obviously that's not an option.
Also, and I think what we're still seeing people try to settle into what the Orc competition no fat list is going to look like.
Yeah, see, and that's the really hard part. In a team turn, like I'm still kind of leaning towards the freebooters with the Death Skulls attachments. That's where I'm settling. The pure buggy list is good. It's just I think it's too risky in a team event. where you can get a good matchup for it. It's okay. Player plays terrain can actually help it too, but I feel like I'm on the Freebooters Death Skull stream. That's where I am right now. I've actually been playing some other tests. I've been testing like some boy spam because making them snake bites, so they only get wounded on 4s and anything strength 7 and under. It gets kind of dirty. But it's just those buggies are so valuable for their points. It's ridiculous.
That's good because I love the way they look. I love the names of them.
They look amazing too. They do.
I really wanted to see them more on the table. I'm happy that they are doing well.
Yes, they are. I love the way they look. They look so cool, and they have some cool rules too.
I'm just getting his list up now, gentlemen, for the Ultras list being run by Ryan Olsen. He's got a Vanguard attachment of his Master Artisans and Whirlwind of Rage, of course. So he's taken a little bit of a melee skew in his Successor Chapter because kind of why not? Because you already
that's normal. You usually see that as the Successor Chapter. That's normal.
He's got a Promos Libby, Promos Techie with Seal of Oath, so he gets the juicy rerolls to wound. 2 Invictors, 2 Redemptors, 2 Contemptors, Suppressors, 2 Landspeeder Storms, and then he has another detachment. This one is a patrol captain on bike, incurses, scouts, and 1 fatty unit of Vanguard vets to kind of play linebacker, play defense for the whole blob. So yeah, very good list. But yeah, it's exactly what we thought it would be, isn't it? It's that polarity shifting, alpha nuking, smashing.
There's layers there. As well. I mean, you really can. You've got these bands. You can threaten in every range, and then come over the top with a couple of those units if necessary. And kind of push them up with things as well if necessary.
But remember what I said about the Nice list. Some of the Renegade Nice lists are just like, hey, can you risk just going second versus me? This is the same issue. He can just throw this up against, even if it's a bad matchup, and just be like, terrain's in my favor, baby, and I went first. Here's this half of your army. Don't even deploy, brother. It's not even here.
Let's talk about Team Battle Brothers, and then we probably need to jump to the London Grand Tournament because there's a bunch of players.
Oh yeah, we still got another whole tournament to talk about here.
And the Fuego Rapido. Look, we also run down, and we have a quick fire segment at the end of the show where we talk about potentially controversial topics. You gotta hang in.
So Team Battle Brothers is our 3rd ranked team in the ITC. They're also in attendance. They're almost sending 2 teams. There's another team that has 2 or 3 of their players on it, but I've decided to go with the one that was entirely of them, which is captained by their flagship Sean Naden, their big name Keystone player. He's playing Dark Eldar. Then we've got Stephen Four. Wonderful to see Juice back in the scene, playing Admech. Patrick McKinney playing White Scars. John Schultz, who I believe is in the chat, playing Hive Mind. We're going to review his list in a moment. And then we've got Stephen Lind on Eldari. This is a very, very interesting lineup. Sean Naden finally making the full pivot into Dark Eldar. Because if I had to guess, I would have guessed he'd be on the Eldari because he's a gun and he can make that work.
No, you can't blend the factions and open it up. So, depending on what the other player and their team wanted to take, it's like, oh, that just cannibalizes one of my books. So I can't, we got to make a compromise. And look, I'll be real honest with you, is that most of his lists were mostly Dark Eldar anyway. So I don't think it's too much of a compromise.
Apologies, I called him John Schultz. It's Josh. So sorry, guys. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It sounds like a hard call had to be made, and Sean was just like, well, I'm Sean Naden. I ain't gonna drop a point. I'm playing Dark Eldar.
No, you take it. Like you definitely put that scalpel in his hands, right?
You throw Sean Naden up against anybody, and what are they gonna do? You're gonna be like, I think we throw somebody to the Sharks here because we don't want to waste a good player, possibly not getting a good score.
Aside from the 2 guys ahead of them, any team that comes up against that, who wants to face Sean Naden? Like, Bob, Space Marine, just go.
Yeah, go into it.
I know who I would put on my team up against him, and I won't go who that is or the reason why.
But so they've got the nice players. So we've got the traditional all-rounded Dark Eldar list. Then we've got a beautiful, what you'd assume Admech list. Then we've got aggressive White Scars, very kind of an all-roundy Hive Mind list, and then a kind of a backline defensive Eldari list. There's kind of a good polarity to this. There's a bit of everything here. That's what you expect from somebody who has such world level teams experience. I like this a lot. Let's have a look at Josh Schultz's Hive Mind list.
Yes, let's look at some Hive Mind. I'm excited. I love this.
We should.
Let me know when we got this up.
Yeah,
I'll give us a rundown. He's in the chat, so I'm gonna slag on his list horrifically. No, I'm not.
Don't worry, Josh. I got your back, buddy. I got your back.
Yeah, because I actually love this list. So the reason I pulled this up is because I love it. I love that teams give you avenues that you can find lists that wouldn't be able to have much of a role or have much of a showing in singles, all of a sudden become a powerhouse in teams. Starts off with a Vanguard attachment, this one of Hive Fleet Chronos. Starts off with a Neurothrope, 3 units of Hive Guard, 1 unit of 6, 2 units of 5, and a single Lictor, because why not? Then he's got a patrol detachment of Kraken, Broodlord, 16 Gene Stealers, 4 Acid Maws, 2 single Pyrovores, because you're a funny man, and then a patrol detachment of Twisted Helix with a Patriarch, 2 units of Rocksaw Echoes, 1 unit of 5 Acolytes, and then a big unit of hybrid Metamorphs, each one with a Hand Flamer, a Whip, and a Rending Claw. And then he's got 2 Goliath trucks to tote around what I assume is the Rocksaw Acolytes, or the Metamorphs, depending. I'm gonna hand pass this straight over to Dusty. What do you think, mate? Because I actually love this list.
This is sexy. I love this, especially in player plays terrain where you can reliably hide 3 units of Hive Guard. Do you have any idea how much damage those guys are going to do in like every matchup? It's incredible. And what are you going to do? You're going to run at them? Cool. I've got Rocksaws. I've got Metamorphs. Come at me, bro. Let's go. There's Gene Stealers here too. These Pyrovores, the Lictor, it's all there to make sure he gets the points, whether engage or he wants Rod. He's got so many options to go steal objectives. This is a juicy list. I love it. I love this list.
What do you make of it, Paul?
Yeah, I think it's what I like about it. It can be everywhere and do everything. There's a whole lot of like, what does that do? For your opponent. So you could potentially, and I'm not saying anyone should make missteps, but you can definitely see this maybe inducing that target confusion that we talk about a lot that will allow them to kind of forward their own goals, which is exactly what the Hive Mind wants to do, right?
Now, and another thing I want to point about this team lineup, I've just pulled up their Eldari list real quickly. I'm just going to have a quick skim. A bunch of fusion players in boats, decent unit of Skyweavers with the Haywire cannons, and then a couple units of Striker Scorpions, a couple units of Super Hawks, 3 units of Dark Reapers with the Tempest launchers, and 2 Night Spinners. So this has.
Hang on one second before we go. I want to talk about the Goliath trucks. Also, it's like that's another one of those. Like a couple of transports are just sleeper hits right now because of things like the Grey Knights and Thousand Suns. Anything that relies on any of that non closest target type of stuff, you don't want to waste your juicy things on there. You could just throw a couple of transports up in there, and if you can get a good transport for sub 100 points, you should really consider it. Listen,
these transports are absolutely amazing too, because like right now until it's fact, or if they use the WTC fact right now, because the blips can go right at your deployment zone. Goliath truck can go an inch out of your deployment zone within that blip, so you're basically getting an extra 7 inches out of your deployment zone. And then with Twisted Healers, you get an additional 2 inches on your advance when you get out, advance, and charge for 1 CP. These things can hit anything on the board on turn 1 if you go first. It is scary. They'll go to anything. It's so efficient. I love it.
I love it.
Sorry, I know we moved on to Eldari, but I wanted to really
tournament, gentlemen.
No, I'm happy that you talked about that. I'll back you up on anything you want to talk about Forces of Hive Mind. Don't worry.
Love it. I just love that it's me, Paul, and then someone with a hard skew. Because like if PJ's on, it's Noise Marines this slash that. Terminators, Dreadclaw. And
I have to be on, it's just like if it's not him, it's got to be me, man. I'm here to skew it. Otherwise, it's just you guys talking about stuff that's average,
I just love that I managed to get away with saying that both Paul and myself are impartial when Paul is literally like. I mean, if you pan to left on Paul's room, he's got like a life-size Mephiston.
How many sanguinary guard can we have?
All right. Tell us about this next event, Paul.
Oh, hang on. Yeah. Okay. So the next event is the London Grand Tournament. This is where I'm going to pull it up. We got 594 players, ridiculous. 7 rounds from the UK, which I think 7 rounds. We break down the math on that in a bit, but this is that's a chunk of folks. I think people are in that area are ready to roll dice and play.
Absolutely, their scene is going haywire. It's amazing to see, and it's an interesting breakdown of factions as well. Now we're trialing a different presentation for the faction breakdowns. Please tell us if you like the last one or you like this one better. I think you're gonna like this one better. We're just evolving as we evolve and as we learn more about how we want to be viewed. But yeah, so quick rundown from the top, because we are a little bit under the pump, gentlemen. We're broken the factions down into super factions. Starting at the top, the Imperial super faction, totaling 142 lists out of the almost 600 we have in attendance. 37 Sisters, 29 Custodes, 34 Admech, 9 Astra Militime, 28 Grey Knights, 5 Imperial Knights. So totaling 142, like I said, really good representation there for like we'd think Admech, but Admech less than Sisters, and almost as many Custodes as AdMech, which is really interesting. And 28
This is
Grey
what I
Knights as well.
expect, though. I really do
Yeah.
expect this because the Adeptus Sororitas, they again contribute to that hobby-like thing where it takes a lot of time for people to ramp up to get exactly what they want. And if the need changes to where you need some Rapincia instead of the Zephyrim or whatever, you've got to there's a time element that's involved in that. And I think that the sisters have all the tools. It's one of the things in the newer 9th edition codex actually have a lot of tools in them in general, but they have it in something that people could just supplement what they're already their collection is already. They're not having to start fresh, and that's why I think that's why we're seeing sisters bubble up.
Well, the interesting one to me here is, I'm actually a little bit surprised to see sisters more than AdMech, but to see so many Custodes and to see, we expect to see definitely seeing Grey Knights on the rise, but 29 Custodes players, that is a huge percentage there. And I'm really happy to see it.
Custodes are a great travel army. Look, Custodes, I don't know how many Telemon are over there, but Telemon are probably easier to get where Forge World is made. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly right. But I just think they're an army that if you're playing all 7 rounds of this event, you're not going to get bored. You're not going to get a sore back. You're going to enjoy every game because they're always going to have a decent game against every army, and they're fun. They've got so many tricks, so many awesome stratagems, and like you said, perfect. You hit it on the head, Paul. If you don't know which army to play the one that's easiest. Play the one that's easiest to travel, easiest to move around, and you're always going to be a good showing. So
5 Knights, ladies and gentlemen. 5 Imperial Knights.
5 Imperial Knights as well. Out of 600 players, only 5. It's probably about right. Jumping down, so we have pulled Marines out to be their own super faction because why not? They're that much. They're that big a percentage of the environment that I think they warrant it. 20 Dark Angels, 17 Space Wolves. So same thing. Space Wolves almost equal, second or equal most. 12 Blood Angels, 8 Death Watch, and 10 unallocated. So 10 people just listed themselves as Adeptus Astartes, and we didn't have time to click on them all and figure out what they were. But that is interesting. So essentially we're saying out of the 68 total Marines, a minimum of 29 of them are aggressive Blood Angel Space Wolves lists. I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's right where it needs to be. Yeah.
But what is surprising is it matches up so well with the tournament we just talked about.
Yeah, I guess. Well, you're going to see the same kind of thing in singles, and because you're saying they're going to be bringing the best lists in that team event, right? Because it's just a win-loss ratio, so it's not surprising to see the same kind of ratio in a singles event, then, right? Because they're trying to bring the best list.
But in this game right now, people. Go ahead. You move the fastest. You get there where you want. You hope for to early closeouts on your opponent, and those lists can deliver that. But it is very much a go big or go home.
Exactly right. Well, what I wanted to point out was that they're so homogenous across different tournament formats, teams to singles. They're so homogenous across different metas on literally different sides of the globe, and they're so homogenous across different terrain formats and different layouts and things. And so it just shows that Marines are just kind of evergreen in a lot of ways. Same as I was talking about Dark Eldar. As long as you're willing to stay flexible within that kind of Marine super faction, you're always going to have a rewarding play experience, I believe. Jumping down to our next one, we have the Chaos Super Faction. 15 Chaos Soup lists, being a mix of CSM or T-Suns, Death Guard, Demons, whatever. 11 straight up Chaos Space Marine lists. 20 T-Suns, 38 Death Guard. Holy crap! 7 Demons and 2 Chaos Knights.
Their time is now. Death Guard time is now.
It's just crazy to see this many Death Guard consistently all the time, week in, week out.
They're fun to play. They look good. I got a buddy who's never played Warhammer his entire life. Started a Death Guard army last week.
There you go.
Like they're just cool models. There's part of that.
A perfect intro army.
What else do you guys make of this? 20 T-Suns. So they are sitting a little bit behind Grey Knights, 28 Grey Knights, 20 T-Suns. But I think that makes sense to me with the armies that people are able to pick up and play. There's just like 8 more people were able to just pick up and play their 5th edition Grey Knight army more than the T-Suns players are able to do with their 7th edition army.
I think you just nailed that analysis right there.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Sometimes it's that simple, guys. One crazy
maybe you repainted their helmets if they used to be purifiers, but no one knows that the purifiers had different helmets, so just bring them, it's fine.
Sorry. So I just want to point out, Death Guard is the second most represented faction at this event. They are sitting second on that podium. But it's crazy.
Blood Angels is first, right?
Dude.
Obviously Blood Angels is first.
Dude, but it's week in, week out. They're one of the top 3 fractions in representation. I think it's amazing. Awesome.
Everywhere.
Well, they struggled to win. they struggle to win either. Like it's hard to go 5-0 with them. And in my experience, it's hard to go 5-0 with them. But it's not hard to go 4-1. And it checks off all the boxes. Good looking armies, easy to move around because you're not playing with a ton of models most of the time unless you choose to. And they play well against into almost everything. It's just very difficult at these types of events to get max number of victories.
Yeah. All right, jumping down to our Xeno super faction. 25 Necrons, 30 Orcs, so very good, healthy representation by both, and 0 Tau. Six, let me just put this in perspective. 600 people, give or take, are attending this thing, and not one of them had it in them to bring Tau. Not one. Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
The poor Tau. The poor Tau.
There you go.
There wasn't even one Joker who was like, I don't want to play a movement phase. I'm going to get absolutely trashed.
I don't want Psychic or movement. I just want
yeah, exactly right. It's just going to deploy and drink. Deploy and drink. Love it. But Hughes, what do you make there? So Orcs, a very, very good representation by Orcs. So, same as Necrons. Still plenty of Necrons there.
Necrons surprises me a little bit, but Necrons are still a very consistent army too, especially if you're used to playing them. It depends on what kind of build you're going to see. If it's going to be what Adam says you should take, is just all kinds of Immortals. I still think Warriors are the way to go. With
I don't know. Yeah, a good buddy of mine just put his money where his mouth is with Necrons. He's right there.
Oh, called out. Absolutely called out. Well, I haven't bought any yet, man. I haven't put my money where my mouth is. But yeah, I've become Cron curious, so to speak.
I have some Crons to pick some up, but they're Warriors.
There you go. I still like Warriors. I just think Necrons are better. Immortals are better at the moment in the current environment. That T5, beautiful. If you can get T5 on a troop, I think that troop is by default decent. And then you put a very premium gun on that troop, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, this guy's actually pretty good. 17 points a model as well, not too bad. But jumping in to talk about the last one, which is the Eldari super faction. 13 mixed what? I didn't do that on purpose, but I'm happy I did it now.
Are you serious?
Hive Mind super faction. We have the Hive Mind super
You're not getting away with that with me on this right
so
now.
Good.
Come on.
I wish that was on purpose now, in hindsight. Hive Mind super faction. 10 Tyranids, 4 GSC, 14 total lists. No mixed. 0 Hive actual mixed between the two.
That's
just
crazy.
Split, and I find that really interesting. I don't see any reason why to do that. Like, you don't lose anything by splitting. I think you just make both hearts better.
Absolutely, but, they fill a couple gaps for each other.
I don't know. I like the single. I like the single factions.
That's because you're fluff guy.
Maybe that's just preference.
That's just
I can see reasons why NIDs could be solo, because you can do some NID builds that I think can be well rounded. But I just don't feel like I don't feel like GSE can be truly well rounded in the current environment.
I think both of them just get better with the other.
Okay. No, look, I trust your opinion on that 100%.
Adding backline shooting from Tyranids to GSE just makes GSE so much better. Yep. And vice versa. If you wanted to say have a horde of Tyranids, Hormigans, Gaunts, whatever, and if you just added like little pocket punchy acolyte units, I think that adds a lot as well.
It adds so much. The close combat you get from GSC and the shooting and psychic you get from Tyranids as well, and some of the extra movement shenanigans, they just make each other so much better. To me, it's just better. But I understand why people want to play pure. I do it too. I've played some pure GSC just because, why not sometimes? But they're definitely better together.
If I had to make a prediction before this event, I would have predicted there to be like 10 Hive Mind and then maybe like 5 pure of each, and that would be my prediction.
That would have been the prediction.
Yeah. Jumping down, we got our last super faction.
Now you may move on, Adam. Now you may move on.
I appreciate your permission.
We're not going to have a ton of time to talk about the players themselves. We gotta get onto our final segment here.
Exactly right. Well, we won't review any of the list. We'll just do the little anecdotal type parts that we've done. 13 mixed Eldari, 53 Drukhari, 53. 7 Harlequins, 10 Craftwood Elder. So actually 10 people brought pure Craftwood Elder. 10 people brought pure Nids as well. I think that's pretty funny that that's the same number. But 53
it's like
Drukhari.
8.5% of the tournament is Drukhari.
Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous. And they are almost 20 people more. Sorry, 38 is Death Guard, the next lowest down. 53 at the top, and then 38, and then it's 37 directly below the 38 for Sisters. That's our top 3 factions in representation. But 53 Drukhari is absolutely fearsome. If you are going to win this game, and chances are if you're going deep into this, you're going to have to knock out 2 Drukhari players on the way, and that's actually kind of a huge ask.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's never easy.
That's a good point. With looking at it that way of what you have to go through, what you have to play through in this many rounds with the saturation of players. I mean, what you really hope is that in round 2 of the tournament, half of them take each other out.
Exactly right. And we talk about not wanting to submarine anymore, but that was the reason why people used to be like, you see 53 Drukhari plays and like, if I have to play them 3 times on 3 missions in 6 rounds, one of those is just going to go bad, and I'm going to get absolutely murderized.
Look, some of them, there's going to be, well, I should say going to be, there's a likelihood that there will be at least one Drukhari on Drukhari matchup. There's some likelihood that not all of them are going to win round 1, but the majority of them that do could play in round 2, and it might thin out.
Yeah,
exactly.
They're going to get thinned out really quickly.
Epically. Round 3, round 4.
Yeah,
spot on. Crazy top players in attendance at this event is absolutely insane. 10 of the top 10 players in the UK are playing at this event. Every single person in the top 10 is at this event, and we're going to run down these pretty quickly because we're going to be long in the tooth. But currently the first ranked player in the UK is Manny Chima. No surprises. I think he's lost 1 or 2 events he's been to in the last 6 months. He's won pretty much every single other one. He's playing Admech. He's been jumping around between Orcs and Admech, and he played a little bit of Drukhari, I think, earlier on. He's got a triple patrol.
With this number of players, you can't afford to lose a round. You can't afford to sacrifice any points. You've got to swing for the fences, and so you bring what you think you got. You can do.
Yeah, and exactly. What's really interesting to see, people bring reliability to an event like this. Just reliable point scoring, efficiency, and just straight line linear power packed on the back of it. And Admech is that to a T.
Yep.
And Lucius Mars, he's taking a triple patrol. Like, he's not running many. He hasn't got many starting CP. He's got 100 odd rangers, a 0 Vanguard from what I could see. Maybe I read it wrong, but 100 rangers give or take, and 6 planes. That's the archetype, and they're just the supporting characters to go along with it. The 6 planes is actually phenomenally good. If people don't know why 6 planes is good for this, it's because they're essentially your screen. They jump around and dart around in front of your army and stop anybody from getting within engagement range. And then you just got 100 warriors to just walk up the board, take all the middle objectives, and shoot you to absolute bits. It's a really good list, and it just can't not do well, I think.
Let's run down the rest of the players and their factions, and I don't think we're going to see really any surprises here, but let's call them out if they do. If we happen to know if they switched factions for this particular event.
To my mind, I haven't seen many surprises here. We've got Mike Porter, the second ranked player in the UK, playing Admech as well. He's playing a double Mars patrol and Outrider, veteran cohort, min-max rangers, 4 units of Sicarans, 3 units of chickens in a conglomeration of 4 chickens, 3 chickens, 1 chicken, which I find really interesting. And he's also got 3 planes. Another very good list, nicely well rounded. I'd love to ask him why those unit chicks, a 4-man, a 3-man, and a 1-man. Doesn't make any sense to me, but here we are. We've got Ben Jones, the 3rd ranked player, running Dark Eldar. He's got a Cult of Strife, a Technomancer, and a Blackheart, so pretty traditional. He's got Blood Brides, MSU Hellions, 2 single Urgles, which I find is pretty interesting. 5 Chronos in a 3-man and a 2-man, a big Court of the Archon, 3 Incubi, Drazar, and he's just min-maxed everything else. Only 3 Raiders. Ultra MSU is what I put next to that as well. Stephen Box, 4th ranked player in the UK, playing Sisters. Single Order of our Martyred Lady Battalion. This one is quite interesting. He's got Celestine, Junith, Min Troops, 3 big units of Celestians, 1 unit of Repentia, 2 units of Dominions, 1 unit of Zephyrim, 3 units of Retributors, and 3 Rhinos. It encapsulates the list. I think this list is a little bit of a sleeper. People are being very gravitated towards the double detachment list, 1 being Bloody Rose and 1 being Take Your Pick. But I think this is going to do very well.
Yeah, I like this list, actually. I think you're right. It's a sleeper list for sure. There's a lot of things in there that people aren't going to expect.
Exactly right. Moving on quickly, we have Mark Crumbleholm in 5th place playing Dark Eldar. Now we were going to review his list because it's really quite interesting, but I'm not sure we've got time now. He's playing triple Cabal. He's got 3 patrols, all are Cabal. He's got Blackheart, he's got Obsidian Rose, and he's got Poison Tongue. And he's just like 3 units of Trueborn in Raiders. He's just got huge min-maxed units of Cabalite Warriors, a bunch of them with blasters, and he's just got stuff kind of everywhere. I actually like his list a lot. He's got all the killer characters you would assume, minus the Succubus. So he's got Drazar and the Archons, whatnot, bunch of Raiders, and a bunch of Courts of the Archon as well. I like his list quite a lot. I think it's going to do very well. I think it's another sleeper Dark Eldar build. And this is the thing, yeah. As soon as you just be like, oh, what does Dark Eldar look without Cult of Strife? All of a sudden, your brain just explodes with opportunities because there's just so many good freaking builds in that book. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. And it gives you the opportunity to take 3 Trueborn if you really wanted to. That's Trueborn are so good.
All right, next up we have Mr. We have
Matt Robinson with Chaos.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
You
Lord
go
of
for it, go for it.
Skulls. Look, this is one of those things. It could be create. Sometimes players are going to go and walk up and go, okay, well, I'm going to shoot my shot, and then if I don't pick them off the table, well, I guess it's a different game.
Good game.
Yeah, absolutely right. Now, so he's got, I've called it a meme-tastic Iron Warriors. Disco Lord, 3 Corn Lords of Skulls, a Bloodmaster with the crown to give him all the juicy goodness buffs, and just a couple of MSU Furies. And I think if I was to call it, because I don't know what this gentleman is playing, you could be playing meme lists like this the entire thing, but if I was him and I was like, well, I'm not willing to play Dark Elder or Admech, so I'm just going to have a good time. And he's probably just going to crush 4 out of 6 games just because he's just going to go first and be like, ha ha ha. But
He's going to be going for best in his faction,
Yeah.
I mean, really, that's
spot on.
Depending on what the award categories are.
Now,
I'll go and close out the rest, and then we can get down to our regular peers. We got Michael Duff 7th with Admech, Michael Costello with Death Watch, and Nick Council 9th with Death Watch. Like 2 Death Watch players. Really think about that. These are what we know as accomplished players, high in the rankings, choosing to bring Death Watch to this massive mega event. That's going to be interesting to see how it went out next week. And then we got Marcus Henson 10th with his Knights and Admech. Now, a good combination as well, especially probably leaning on that the Book of Rust.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely. Sure. I think he's got a Castellan and 2 Crusaders, I believe. I looked at his list really quickly.
Old school.
Because he was listed as Imperium, so I wanted to see what the combination was. But Michael Costello and Nick Council, I hope at the start of the first round you have a gentleman's bet, and the guy who ends the highest between the two of you gets a pint. I hope there's some kind of thing going that one like that. Because see 8th place and 9th place both taking Death Watch. Hopefully you guys are good mates, because I think that's hilarious.
I think that's going to be interesting. I want to see, how they both did, and what we saw as the Lord of Skulls after this event. I think this is going to be a good one to go look back on after this takes place.
Spot on. Now let's hit up that Fugaro, boys. We are long in the tooth.
Yeah, that's it. We got to do our rundown. So this is the point of the show. We put up a list of topics. We read those topics off, and then we give ourselves a small amount of time to actually just pontificate on them. So as soon as production starts the clock, I'll kick us off. Oh, okay. What will it take to make vehicles worth taking? Dustin, we'll start with you.
What? Are they not worth taking right now? I'm taking them all the time. I love vehicles.
I feel the same way.
I love them.
I just endorsed it.
But what are you? So I wrote this one in there. But what are you taking? You're taking a couple of transports, yeah?
Yeah, just taking transports, of course.
They're
vehicles. They're vehicles.
Kinda. You know what I mean? Like we're not
saying land speeders are vehicles. Iron Strider Ballistaria are vehicles. Dread Knights are vehicles.
What are you taking?
Okay, but I think what you mean is
why aren't you taking vehicles?
So I think so the only vehicles that I consider taking are like some dreadnoughts, like essentially.
Dreadnoughts are vehicles.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, you make some fair points, gents. What about things like Land Raiders, things like Gladiators, things like Executioners, things like Lehman Russes, things like all?
The Valkyrie. The vehicles from some of those things. Chimeras.
Real question: what will it take to take tanks? Is what you really want to know.
Yeah. That's fair.
Do
you take rock grinders, man? Like, do you take rock grinders?
I have actually. They're kind of fun.
Once
I don't take them in competitive lists, but I'll put like 5 aberrants in them because it's fun. But
exactly.
With vehicles, with beholden to what the terrain does sometimes, their weapons are not always as reliable as maybe what you want them to be. I think so. Seeing when we're counseling people on what to take, we look at the point values too. Like if you can find a vehicle that does several different things or can perform a multifunction role for less than 100 points or something like that, or around 100 points, maybe plus 5-10% off of that, then it's probably a good vehicle. When you start looking into that, when you're having to make really good different value choices in your list, like, man, do I want to take this 200-point vehicle? That's a different thing altogether.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the main thing for sure. I'm talking about like if you want to be able to do shooting and close combat with the tank. That's what you need.
Fair. Yeah, why did I hit on sixes? Why did you get hit with a freaking tank, man? And it's gonna miss like
somebody's trying to lean out the door. We're on the okay. Time is ticking on the next one. How long should I allocate for deployment at an event? So in tournaments have timed rounds, right? And so your deployment strategy or how you handle your deployment and the time that you take has to be factored into your overall strategy. And I don't think it is factored in enough in people's minds. Am I crazy?
I 100% agree. 100% agree. The amount of times, especially when I'm calling games as well, and you see one, they both, use the chess clock to allocate their time, and you'll see one person who's used like upwards of 20 minutes on deployment. He's like, man, that could really come back to bite you. You might just lose the game because of how much you spent at deployment. And so I'd like to get deployment under. I think I've got it to under 7 minutes on no matter what army I take. I try and keep it under 7 minutes.
No matter what.
And that takes into account like explaining my list as well. So probably around 5 minutes. And so that means if I'm taking a horde army, I've got movement trays to deploy upon. If I'm taking, whatever, I've got. If I need to keep people in auras on deployment, I use little, diameter discs, or I use the 6-inch diameter, widgets, or I actually use spare objective markers, the 6-inch felt discs or whatever to allocate, so I know they're all within 6 inches when I deploy them, and I'll put them down, whatnot.
Those are about 7 3/4 inches wide, so just be sharp.
I think 7 minutes is a good number because I'm playing like Force of the Hive Mind, right? So I have a lot of blips too. So my deployment doesn't really happen until the end of first turn movement phase for my opponent or on my first turn. So mine sometimes takes a little bit longer, like 2-3 minutes. That's mainly though because I am actually counter deploying every single time because I can. That's one of the strongest things about GSC. So it takes a little bit longer, but it means my first turn is either a lot better and their first turn is useless. As useless as I can make it. So it takes a little bit longer for that point of it. I think 7 minutes is a good time.
KR Quinn, what if you talk normal speed? I don't know what that is.
Then you got 9 minutes of deployment. That's what you want. Okay, here's one. Should I give my opponents max points if I concede? This is a charged topic, and we know that. And I'm not gonna answer yet. Adam, what is your answer?
So I differentiate between calling a game and conceding. I think if you say you concede, you give up any rights to govern the end score, despite you get what you had at the time of scoring, and you lose pretty much any say in any determining whatever else happens. If you say, look, I think I'm going to call the game here right now. The points I have is pretty much all that I'm going to be able to get. You score the points you were going to get, and I accept that I've lost this game. I think by doing that, you get a lot more agency in self-determination. When I think of concede, I think of something that happens in the first 3 turns of a game. When I talk about calling a game, I generally think about something that happens in the last 3 turns of a game. If someone concedes to me in the first turn, I'm like, well, bruh, I'm giving myself max points, and you can't really say I can't have those points because we haven't played the game, and you've accepted that you're going to lose. But if so I think generally the answer is yes. But I think if you accept that you've lost and you concede, firstly I'll tell people don't concede, play a game out, get whatever fun you can out of it. And if you come to an end and you want to concede,
well, if they're having fun, right? Because some people concede for different reasons, right?
If you call a game over on turn 4, the way I see it, I've got the points that I've scored. If I've called it, I'm like, I'm going down hard. The points that I've scored are the points that I've scored. You continue to score as many points as you can get, brother. And if you get a max win,
Dustin, we're running out of time on that. What do you think, though?
I say don't concede because you learn more when you're playing from behind than you do when you're winning. You will learn so much more in the game. You will get better at it whenever you play through a game, no matter how much you're losing by. Just keep playing through it. Get out of your own head. You'll be fine. You'll still have fun.
I'm gonna say put those terms and conditions in the packet for your tournament. That's what I think. However the organizer wants to handle that. So it's done consistently across all tables, across every round. I love this new format that we've got for the Fuego here. It's actually pretty cool. Ideal 40K pilgrimage. This could be. Let's try to keep it terrestrial, possible. Whatever. Well, maybe not even terrestrial. Let's make it possible by today's technology. What is your ideal 40K pilgrimage, Dustin? What'd you say?
I just go to Warhammer World, man. That's because I don't live in London, right? So I want to go over there and do that. I was supposed to do it when I went to WTC, but I couldn't because I had to work longer. So the rest of the team did it, and I felt I really wanted to go, so I'm going to do it next time. But I think that's the main pilgrimage. You got to go there. You got to have some games with some of the locals there everywhere you go. That's the pilgrimage. You got to go to Warhammer World, play some games with some locals. That's what you want.
Warhammer World is awesome. Bugman's Bar is so cool.
My ideal one would be August WTC, September London Grand Tournament, October Warhammer World. And that's my pilgrimage journey.
Perfect.
That's like it takes me across my meccas, so to speak.
I would go on that pilgrimage with you, Adam. Let's do that.
Yeah, let's do that next year. Let's do it
next year.
Guy, it makes me feel. I was thinking like, what? Because I'm fortunate enough to I've played Warhammer in Warhammer World, and it is absolutely awesome. I've been able to play at some of what I consider the crown jewel tournaments here in the States. I'd love to play, I don't know, in the next to a volcano or something, like that's where I'm a safe enough distance away from an erupting volcano.
Cool.
Somewhere
That's pretty metal.
somewhere like that.
Very metal.
Yeah. So I think that's what I was. I don't know what I would have as my ideal pilgrimage, but I think that's something. I think I'm going to math it out. I think I'm going to try to math it out and have a better answer by the next time we come around to this.
Beautiful. All right, might as well hit the next one then.
Here we go. Non-top tier faction that will go undefeated at the Las Vegas team tournament. What's your pick?
My new heart.
I can tell you what it won't be. Yeah.
What? No, go. What would it be?
Oh no, there were just zero hive mind. I'm sorry, zero.
Yeah, that's right. yeah. I'm gonna call. Oh, actually, I'm actually going seesawing between a couple. Dustin, you want to go?
There was one hive mind at the LVT. What are we talking about? I know at least one.
Yeah, it was Josh Schultz.
That's going to be it.
I'm just special. Yeah.
That's going to be it, man. It's absolutely going to be hive mind. People are always sleep on that. Hive mind is so good at team tournaments.
No,
you guys don't even know.
I think you're right too. You could be spot on because especially in that team tournament format, to where they may get some good matchups, and that's what they want. You want to create these good matchups, but then the player skill games. So they might have just a couple of lopsided games, and then only have to really put in that skill for a couple of the games, which could propel them to an undefeated record.
Absolutely. Paul, I think you meant to say GSC, because GSC had the donut. It wasn't Hive.
Oh,
Hive
sorry.
Yeah,
that's what I meant.
I'm going to call Imperial Knights. I think one Imperial Knight player of the 8 is going to go undefeated.
I'm down. I can get behind that for sure.
I'm going to say Space Wolves. Actually,
nice. Yeah, good call.
You're reading the chat a lot, aren't you, Paul?
No, so I did. So I did look in the chat, but I've been reminded the Space Wolves have actually been doing decently well recently from what I've seen on like Twitter and stuff. So I think that maybe that code has been cracked to where there's the right mix of their characters and their special rules and the strats that might put them in a situation to where they and then really I think that a lot of those Space Wolf players are either going to throw them into situations like, well, we don't know what to face here, so let's go ahead and put that Space Wolf players out, or they could be saving them, after all the heavy hitters have been picked off already, and then kind of player protecting a little bit. And so, because of that and the density of the list, I think that we might see Space Wolves go all the way.
Yep, I like it. Beautiful. Surprise pocket sand.
All right. Well, we didn't call winners. I called the winner. I said that my boys Art of War is going to take out the LVTT. Do you guys want to call the winner?
Battle Brothers. Let's go, boys.
There we go. Yeah, I can get behind that. I think that those are obviously there's incredibly skilled players taking lean list, tried and proven list, and they are going to be. I think in the early rounds it's definitely theirs to lose. It's a little too soon to tell, but I think those are solid picks, and I can endorse. You can get behind both of those absolutely.
Now let's not pick a player for LGT. Let's pick a faction. What faction do you think is going to take out the 600 player super major?
Custodes.
Nice. Bold. I love it.
Wow.
Love it.
I'm gonna say Admech.
Yep, I'm gonna say Drakari just because they got 53. I'm playing it safe.
That's a good bet. That's a good bet.
53 players playing it safe. Anyway,
it has been awesome to see the chat, and thank you all for participating live with us. If you are listening to us later, we do this every Thursday. We do a live stream. You can participate in the chat. We'd love to see the comments. Love to see what people are talking about. If you have an event or you're playing in the event, come check it out and see if we're going to talk about it and talk about maybe what your hopes for the events are. And yeah, we're really looking forward to seeing y'all next week. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You guys got anything you want to add before we get out of here?
There's going to be some amazing coverage of the LGT this weekend over on the Oldest Wargamer. Tune over there for some awesome coverage. I'm going to be doing the in-between round stuff. So in between round 1 and after round 4, I'm going to be doing a bit of a roundup, and also in between round 5 and round 6. But I'm doing little half-hour ones. Then I'll be covering all of the lunchtime stuff. Tune in. I'm going to be up early in the morning talking some absolute crap, talking about who's winning, who's losing. Jump on the Oldest Wargamer, support the stream, and yeah, we'll see you there. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Absolutely. I'll be joining you there too.
Good night, everybody.